Under a bruised twilight sky, the sea smelled of salt and fear. Maya Roberts, a 30-year-old environmental activist, stood handcuffed beside a police cruiser, her hair tangled and wet from the storm that had chased her through the night. She had been protesting illegal waste dumping near the coast, the kind that poisoned the waters and killed marine life. But that night, her cries for justice turned into screams for mercy. The cops who caught her were not just corrupt, they were cruel. They mocked her passion, spat at her ideals, and when she refused to give up the evidence she'd recorded on her camera, they decided to silence her forever. They drove her to the docks, where the wind howled and the waves clawed at the wooden planks. "You wanted to save the ocean," one of them sneered, his badge glinting under the floodlight. "Let it save you." With one brutal shove, they pushed her off the pier into the black, roaring water. The cold hit her like knives. The world above vanished into darkness, replaced by the endless sound of crashing waves and her own heartbeat hammering inside her skull. When she surfaced, gasping, she saw the boat speed away, its red taillight shrinking into the horizon. She was alone. The water churned violently, and she realized with a jolt of terror where she was, an area known by local fishermen as the Devil's Mouth, where sharks circled in the deep, drawn by discarded bait and blood from nearby fishing boats. Her wrists were still bound, and her legs ached with exhaustion. Every movement sent sharp pain shooting through her arms. But Maya was a fighter. She had spent her life standing up to the powerful, politicians, corporations, anyone who thought the poor or voiceless didn't matter. She wasn't going to let this ocean become her grave. She rolled onto her back, keeping her face above water, forcing herself to breathe slow and steady. Somewhere far off, thunder rumbled. She thought of her mother's voice, "When you find yourself surrounded by darkness, become your own light." It had been her guiding truth ever since she lost her parents in a car crash at 17. She had survived that. She could survive this. Using the edge of a broken plastic bottle floating nearby, she began to saw at the rope around her wrists, one stroke at a time, ignoring the cuts it left on her skin. The ocean rocked her violently, and twice she swallowed water, coughing, choking, but she didn't stop. When the last fiber snapped, she almost sobbed from relief. Then came the shadows. Long, dark shapes beneath the surface, circling closer. She knew what they were. Sharks, maybe 4 or 5 of them. Panic threatened to take over. Every instinct screamed to thrash and flee, but she remembered what her father had once told her during their beach camping trips: the ocean respects calm hearts. So she froze, barely moving, floating on her back, letting the current carry her. Minutes felt like hours. The sharks brushed past her, one coming so close that she could feel the ripple of water against her skin. Her tears mixed with saltwater. "Please," she whispered, "not like this." Suddenly, a wave lifted her, pushing her toward something hard, a floating barrel, half submerged. She clung to it, chest heaving. On its side, she saw a faint lettering, Waste Tech Industries. The same company she'd been fighting to expose. Her body trembled with exhaustion and rage. They were poisoning the ocean, and the police, bought by them, had tried to bury her in it. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. As dawn approached, her arms felt numb, and her throat burned from seawater. The horizon glowed faintly orange. Somewhere in the distance, she saw a light, the faint blinking of a fishing boat. Gathering every ounce of strength left, she tore a strip from her shirt and tied it to a piece of driftwood, waving it weakly. For hours, she screamed until her voice cracked. The boat didn't seem to notice. Then she saw something. Movement in the water behind her. Another fin. Bigger this time. She froze, her body stiff with dread. The shark circled again, closer. She knew if she gave up now, she'd vanish without a trace, another name lost to the deep. But then, in that moment of despair, a surge of determination rose inside her. "Not today," she hissed. "Not like this." She grabbed the barrel, pushed it forward, and kicked. One stroke, another, slow but steady. The salt burned her eyes, her muscles screamed. Hours blurred into one long nightmare. But then she heard it, a voice. Human. "Hey, over there." The boat turned. A fisherman shouted and threw a rope. Maya could barely lift her arms, but somehow she caught it. They pulled her aboard, her body shaking uncontrollably, lips blue. The fisherman called the Coast Guard, who airlifted her to safety. When she regained consciousness 2 days later in a hospital bed, cameras flashed around her. The video she had recorded before being caught, showing the police working with the waste company to dump toxic chemicals into the ocean, had already gone viral. Her waterproof camera had washed ashore, found by a local teenager who posted it online. The world had seen everything. The officers were arrested. The company faced millions in fines. And Maya Roberts, the woman they left to die, became a global symbol of resilience and truth. In the weeks that followed, she spoke softly in interviews, her voice still raspy but her spirit unbroken. "They tried to drown me in silence," she said, "but the ocean carried my voice further than I ever could." Donations poured in for her cause. She started an organization called Rise Blue, dedicated to protecting marine life and exposing environmental corruption. Her story inspired documentaries, speeches, and even schoolchildren who wrote her letters saying she made them believe that courage could change the world. Months later, she returned to the very pier where they had pushed her into the sea. The water looked peaceful that day, glittering under the sun. She closed her eyes, touched the waves, and whispered, "Thank you for giving me back my life." Behind her, the press stood ready as she unveiled a memorial, not for herself, but for all activists silenced by power. The plaque read, "Truth, like the tide, always returns." But it wasn't fame that drove her, it was the faces of those who couldn't fight for themselves, the fishermen poisoned by the waste, the children whose beaches had turned black, the mothers who lost livelihoods when the sea died. She became their voice, standing before Congress, facing the same kind of men who once thought she was powerless. Her scars still ached when it rained, and sometimes she woke up gasping from dreams of cold water and circling shadows. But every morning, she looked at the sunrise and remembered, she had risen from the depths. Years later, the world would know her as the woman who spoke for the sea. Her foundation built clean water schools, helped rebuild coral reefs, and provided jobs for coastal communities. And on the anniversary of that night, she swam again in the ocean, not as a victim, but as a survivor. When a child asked her, "Weren't you scared?" she smiled and said, "Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to swim even when you know what's beneath you." That evening, as the sun set behind the waves, Maya stood on the shore, her reflection glowing in gold. The ocean that once tried to claim her now whispered softly around her feet. She smiled through tears, whispering, "We made history." Because sometimes, the deepest darkness reveals the brightest light, and sometimes, the people left to drown become the ones who teach the world how to rise.